You can't sit here." The words hit harder than the rain pounding against the cafe windows. A crowded downtown cafe had become shelter from a sudden storm, every seat filled, every table claimed. At the center of the room stood a black man in a worn hoodie, holding a dripping umbrella, frozen as a cafe manager pointed at him. Across the room, a 10-year-old white girl stood alone, clutching a small backpack, her sneakers soaked through. She had already been turned away from 3 tables. Her voice shook as she asked him softly, "Sir, can I sit with you?" Before he could answer, someone scoffed. "Absolutely not," a woman said loudly. "That's inappropriate." Phones lifted. Eyes judged. The manager stepped closer. And in that moment, no one noticed the girl's hands trembling. Or the way the man's jaw tightened, like he had heard this before. Many times. 2 strangers, 1 table. The man's name was Marcus Reed. To the cafe, he was just another face they didn't trust, tall, quiet, hoodie pulled low. To the world, he looked like trouble. But Marcus had been awake since 4 a.m., driving across the city after a double night shift. He hadn't come for coffee. He came because this cafe was across from the courthouse. The girl's name was Emily Carter. She was 10 years old. Her mother was late. Her phone battery was dead. She didn't know anyone in the cafe, but she noticed something others didn't. Marcus wasn't staring at his phone. He wasn't staring at her. He was staring at the door. Waiting, like someone who knew what it meant to hope quietly. What neither of them knew was that this small request for a seat would expose something ugly, and something powerful. Quiet kindness, loud judgment. Marcus pulled out the chair. "Of course you can sit," he said gently. "Storms don't care who you are." Emily smiled with relief. That's when the whispers started. Is that her dad? Why would her parents allow this? Someone should say something. Marcus noticed the stares. He always did. Emily talked nervously, filling the silence. "I'm supposed to meet my mom. She works across the street. She said not to talk to strangers, but you looked safe." Marcus chuckled softly. "Funny. People rarely think that about me." Emily frowned. "Why?" Before he could answer, the manager returned, this time with security. "Sir," the guard said, "we've had complaints." Emily's eyes widened. "I asked him to sit with me." The guard ignored her. Marcus stood slowly. "It's fine," he said. "I'll go." Emily grabbed his sleeve. "No," she said. "You didn't do anything wrong." The cafe fell quiet, and the manager made a decision that would soon haunt him. Below is an expanded, fully cinematic version of episode 4, rewritten to approximately 1,000 words, with high emotional tension, clear humiliation, escalating racial bias, and YouTube retention pacing. This episode is designed to be the emotional breaking point of the story. The cafe no longer sounded like a cafe. The low hum of conversation had thinned into sharp whispers. Cups stopped clinking. Even the espresso machine seemed quieter, as if the room itself was holding its breath. Marcus stood near the table, his chair pushed back just enough to signal he was ready to leave, but not ready to surrender his dignity. Emily remained seated, her small hands gripping the edge of the table so tightly her knuckles had gone pale. The manager stood a few feet away, arms crossed, jaw clenched, eyes fixed on Marcus, not with curiosity but with a decision already made. "Sir," the manager said, raising his voice just enough to carry, "we're getting complaints." "Several." Marcus nodded slowly. He'd heard those words before. Different places. Same tone. "I understand," he replied calmly. "But the young lady asked to sit here. I didn't approach her." Emily shot to her feet. "I asked him," she said, louder now. "I was alone." A woman at the counter scoffed. "That doesn't make it appropriate." Another voice followed. "Where are her parents?" Emily's eyes darted around the room, panic creeping in. "My mom's working across the street," she said. "She told me to wait inside because of the storm." The manager didn't look at her. His gaze never left Marcus. "For everyone's comfort," the manager said, "I'm going to need you to step outside." There it was. Not an accusation. Not a reason. Just a removal. Marcus felt the familiar tightening in his chest, the one that came not from fear, but from experience. The quiet knowledge that nothing he said would sound right to the people who had already decided who he was. He glanced down at Emily. "It's okay," he said softly. "I don't want you to feel scared." Emily shook her head violently. "I am scared," she said. "Because they're being unfair to you." The word unfair cut deeper than any insult. A security guard appeared beside the manager, tall and stiff, hand hovering near his radio. "Sir," the guard said, "let's not make this difficult." Phones were out now. Marcus saw the tiny red recording dots, the lenses angled just right to catch his face, but not the fear in the child's eyes. He raised his hands slowly, palms open. "I'm leaving," he said. "But I want to be clear, I did nothing wrong." The manager exhaled, as if relieved. "That's not the point," he said. Emily suddenly climbed onto her chair. "He's not doing anything bad," she cried out. "You're only doing this because he's black." The word slammed into the room. Black. It echoed, not aloud, but in the way people shifted uncomfortably, the way some stared at the floor while others stiffened defensively. "That's inappropriate," the manager snapped. "Sit down." "No," Emily shouted. Her voice cracked, but she didn't stop. "You didn't say anything to the other people. You didn't ask them questions. You only asked him to leave." Marcus turned toward her, heart pounding. "Emily," he said gently, "it's okay." But it wasn't. A woman near the window whispered, "Kids don't understand these things." Marcus looked at her. "No," he said quietly. "They understand more than we think." The security guard stepped closer. "Sir," he said, firmer now, "you need to move." Marcus took one step forward. That's when a man in a business suit spoke up from behind his laptop. "Look," the man said, annoyed, "we're all just trying to have coffee. Why is this turning into a scene?" Marcus turned to face him. "It's a scene," he said evenly, "because I was judged before I said a word." The man rolled his eyes. "Don't make this about race," Emily screamed. "It already is." Tears streamed down her face now. She jumped off the chair and ran toward Marcus, wrapping her arms around his waist. "He didn't scare me," she sobbed. "You did." The room froze. No one expected that. Marcus felt her shaking and instinctively stepped back, careful, deliberate, aware of how this would look on camera. He gently placed his hands in front of him, not touching her. "Sweetheart," he said, voice steady despite the fire burning in his chest, "it's okay." But the security guard misread the moment. "Ma'am," he said to Emily, "come here." Emily clung tighter. "No." That was when something inside Marcus shifted, not anger, not fear, but resolve. "Stop," Marcus said firmly. The guard hesitated. "I am asking you," Marcus continued, voice calm but commanding, "to stop frightening a child." The guard blinked. The manager snapped, "Escort him out. Now." The guard reached for Marcus's arm. Cameras zoomed in. Marcus allowed himself to be guided, but not before speaking one last time, loud. "Enough for the entire cafe. You're teaching her something today," he said. "Just not what you think." Emily screamed his name as he was pulled toward the door. "I'll tell my mom," she cried. "I'll tell everyone." The door swung open. Rain and sirens flooded in. And just as Marcus stepped onto the sidewalk, police sirens erupted across the street. Not one, not two, but many. The cafe windows lit up with flashing red and blue. People rushed to the glass. "What's happening?" someone asked. Across the street, courthouse doors burst open. Officers poured out. Reporters followed, shouting into microphones. The security guard froze, hand still on Marcus's arm. Marcus looked toward the chaos. And for the first time since entering the cafe, he smiled, because he knew exactly what was about to happen. And inside the cafe, Emily watched through tear-filled eyes as the world outside shifted. Unaware that the man they had just humiliated was about to be revealed as the reason everyone in that room was about to be safe. The man they misjudged. The sirens didn't fade, they multiplied. Red and blue lights washed over the cafe walls, flickering through the windows like a warning pulse. Conversations died mid-sentence. Phones that had been recording Marcus now pivoted toward the street. "What's going on?" someone whispered. The security guard's grip loosened. Across the street, the courthouse doors burst open as uniformed officers poured out, some running, some shouting into radios. Black SUVs screeched to a stop. Reporters appeared from nowhere, cameras already rolling as if they'd been waiting for this exact moment. Marcus stood still on the sidewalk, rain soaking into his hoodie, eyes locked on the chaos. Emily pressed her face against the cafe glass. "Mom," she whispered, scared now, but also confused. The security guard swallowed. "You know something about this?" he asked Marcus quietly. Marcus didn't answer. Then a man in a dark suit sprinted across the street toward them, badge clipped to his belt, rain splashing up his pant legs. "Marcus Reed," the man shouted. Every head snapped around. "That's him," the man said breathlessly. "Is he okay?" The guard straightened. "Sir, the man flashed his badge. "Federal Protective Services. That man needs to come with me now." The word federal landed like a thunderclap. The cafe doors flew open as the manager stepped outside, eyes wide. "What is this?" he demanded. "What's going on?" The federal agent ignored him, turning instead to Marcus. "You were right," the agent said. The threat moved sooner than expected. Marcus nodded once. Calm, focused. They always do when they feel pressure. The agent turned to the guard. "Unhand him." The guard stepped back immediately. Inside the cafe, gasps rippled through the crowd. The woman who had scoffed earlier covered her mouth. The man with the laptop slowly closed it. Emily's heart pounded. She pushed through the door and ran outside. "Marcus," she called. Marcus turned, surprised, and then knelt, rain soaking his jeans. "You okay?" he asked gently. She nodded hard. "They were mean to you." He smiled softly. "That's not the worst thing that's ever happened to me." The agent cleared his throat. "Sir, we need to move." Marcus stood and looked back at the cafe, at the people who had judged him, dismissed him, removed him. 5 minutes, Marcus said. "That's all I ask." The agent hesitated, then nodded. Marcus turned to the crowd gathering near the windows. "I didn't come here for coffee," Marcus said evenly. His voice carried, not loud, but impossible to ignore. "I came because someone inside that building," he pointed to the courthouse, "decided human lives were an acceptable cost." Reporters leaned in. "My name is Marcus Reed," he continued. "I'm a federal investigator. And for the last 18 months, I've been working undercover on a corruption case involving witness intimidation and attempted murder." Murmurs exploded. The manager's face drained of color. "This morning," Marcus said, "I noticed a pattern. Unmarked vehicles. A man pretending to read the same newspaper for 40 minutes. The same mistake criminals always make, they think no one's watching." The agent stepped forward. He identified the threat before we did. Marcus looked down at Emily. "You helped me," he said. She blinked. "I did. You reminded me why staying calm matters," he said. "Why doing the right thing quietly is still doing the right thing." Across the street, officers dragged a handcuffed man out of the courthouse. Cameras flashed violently. Someone shouted, "Active threat neutralized." The words echoed through the crowd. The cafe door creaked open as Emily's mother ran out, breathless and panicked. "Emily!" she cried. Emily turned and ran into her arms. "I was scared," Emily said, voice shaking, "but he helped me." Her mother looked up at Marcus, eyes wet. "They treated him badly," Emily added. "But he's good." Emily's mother stared at Marcus, really looked at him, and then turned slowly toward the cafe. The people inside looked away. The agent's radio crackled. "Suspect in custody. No casualties." Marcus exhaled. The tension drained from his shoulders for the first time that day. The agent placed a hand on his back. "You saved lives today." Marcus shook his head. "We did our jobs." One of the reporters stepped forward. "Mr. Reed, how does it feel to be removed from a cafe minutes before stopping a federal crime?" Marcus paused. Then he answered, not with anger, not with bitterness, but with truth. "It feels familiar," he said. "Being underestimated. Being watched for the wrong reasons. But today a child reminded me that integrity doesn't need permission." He looked at Emily. She saw me as human before she saw me as anything else. The reporter lowered her mic. The manager stepped forward, voice shaking. "Sir, I didn't know." Marcus met his eyes. "No," he said. "You didn't ask." Silence followed. Heavy. Unavoidable. Police escorted Marcus toward the SUVs. Emily broke free from her mother's arms and ran up one last time. "Will I see you again?" she asked. Marcus smiled. "If the world's fair," he said, "we won't need moments like this." She frowned. "But if it's not?" He knelt again. "Then people like you keep speaking up." She nodded solemnly. As the SUV door closed, the cafe crowd watched the man they had removed become the man everyone else saluted. The rain slowed. Sirens faded. And inside the cafe, no one spoke, because they all understood the same thing now. They hadn't just witnessed a crime prevented. They had witnessed a truth revealed. And once revealed, it could never be unseen. Who deserves a seat? The story didn't end when the sirens stopped. That was only when it began to spread. By that evening, the video was everywhere, cut, stitched, slowed down, replayed from every angle. One clip showed Marcus being escorted out of the cafe. Another captured Emily standing on the chair, her small voice shaking but unbroken. Another froze on the moment the federal badge flashed in the rain. The internet argued, as it always does. But this time, something was different. People weren't just watching the twist. They were watching themselves. Morning news shows replayed the footage with quiet faces. Commentators paused longer than usual before speaking. One anchor said softly, "This could have gone very differently." Across the city, Marcus Reed sat at his kitchen table, a cup of coffee cooling untouched beside him. His daughter, Nia, sat across from him, scrolling through her tablet. "That's you," she said matter-of-factly. Marcus smiled faintly. "Yeah," he said. "That's me." "Why were they mean to you?" she asked. He thought about it. "Sometimes," he said slowly, "people decide who you are before they let you speak." Nia frowned. "That's not fair." "No," Marcus agreed. "But it's real." At the same time, across town, Emily sat on her bed clutching her backpack. Her mother sat beside her, watching the replay one last time before turning the phone face down. "You were very brave," her mother said. Emily shook her head. "I was just telling the truth." Her mother hugged her tightly. 2 weeks later, Marcus received a handwritten envelope. No return address. Inside was a drawing, a cafe table, 2 stick figures sitting across from each other. One was colored brown, one pink. Above them, a crooked speech bubble read, "Everyone deserves a seat." Marcus swallowed hard. The cafe reopened on a Monday morning. Same brick walls. Same windows. Same smell of coffee and pastries. But something was different. Near the table by the window, the one where everything had happened, a small brass plaque had been installed. It read, "This table is reserved for courage, kindness, and the presumption of humanity." The manager stood behind the counter, watching people read it. Some smiled, some looked uncomfortable, some nodded slowly, as if recognizing a truth they'd avoided. At exactly 9:17 a.m., the bell above the door rang. Marcus walked in. The cafe went quiet, not out of fear this time, but awareness. He wore the same hoodie. This time, he wasn't alone. Nia walked beside him, her hand in his. They approached the table. The manager stepped forward. "Mr. Reed," he said, "I want to apologize again. Not for the video, but for the decision." Marcus looked at him. "That apology matters more," Marcus said. "Thank you." The manager gestured to the table. "It would be an honor if you sat." Marcus nodded. As he pulled out the chair for his daughter, the bell rang again. Emily walked in, holding her mother's hand. She froze when she saw him. Then she ran. Marcus stood just in time to catch her hug. "You came," she said. "So did you," Marcus replied, smiling. They sat. 3 generations, 3 stories, 1 table. People watched, but no one whispered. Emily placed the drawing on the table. "That's for you," she said shyly. Marcus unfolded it carefully. "It's perfect," he said. Emily beamed. A reporter hovered near the door, debating whether to interrupt. The manager shook his head gently. "Let them have their coffee," he whispered. Outside, life moved on. Buses passed. People hurried to work. The world didn't stop, but something had shifted. Because justice isn't always a courtroom verdict. Sometimes, it's a correction. Later that day, Marcus testified. The case concluded quietly. Guilty pleas. Resignations. No headlines screamed this time. That night, Marcus tucked Nia into bed. "Dad," she asked, "did you know you were going to be a hero?" Marcus smiled sadly. "No," he said. "I just knew I had to be patient." She thought about that. "Emily was brave," she said. "Yes," Marcus replied. "And bravery looks different on everyone." Weeks passed. The video slowed. The comments faded. But the plaque stayed. And so did the lesson. One rainy afternoon, a tired woman walked into the cafe with a crying child. No open tables. Without hesitation, a stranger stood up. "You can have my seat," he said. No cameras. No applause. Just a choice. Marcus heard about it later, from the manager, who smiled when he told the story. "It's catching," the manager said. Marcus nodded. "It always was." On his way out, Marcus paused by the window. His reflection stared back at him. Not the man people feared, not the man people celebrated. Just a man. Human. And somewhere across the city, Emily wrote an essay for school titled, "The Day I Learned What Fair Really Means." She got an A. But more importantly, she learned to speak. And Marcus learned that sometimes, humiliation is not the end of the story. Sometimes, it's the moment before revelation. And sometimes, when truth finally takes its seat, justice doesn't shout, it simply stays. Because justice doesn't always come loud. Sometimes it comes through a child brave enough to speak, and a man strong enough to stay calm. When the world gets it wrong,